Holy shit. Good morning. It's Tuesday, September 2nd. Just before 6 a.m. and I've been out here screwing around on the pig for a couple hours. Done a couple things this morning. I want to balance the old rear axle so that I can kind of conserve floor space and start tearing parts off of it as I need. Just get it ready for wherever its new home will be. On the pig itself, of course I pulled the rockers off of it and I was able to jack the body up so I can separate it from the frame just in the back. So I'm planning to do my cut in this general area. So I wanted to give myself as much space as here up on top as I could, so I can work with that. I think there should be enough room. My air tank is what you're seeing here. It'll be inboard enough that it shouldn't get in my way. I don't have to take it off. Of course that happened on both sides. You can see the car's sitting kind of at a funny angle. Well, the frame itself, and what I spent most of my time on this morning, is trying to get it level. Some jack stands in the back to support it. Of course, there's still fuel in the tank, so it's going to be biased to the ass end. So I wanted some supports at as far back as I could get it. So when I do cut it free, it doesn't try to jump off of there. Some supports here in the front, or in the front of the back section, right at the coil spring buckets. And it's just kind of hanging out. So between those two, I suspect that that's not going to move anywhere. And then of course the back of what will be left of the frame, right under the driver's seat area, is going to support that. I aired the tires up to 25 pounds so that they would be level, and everything seems pretty level. I put my bubble level on back here. You can see it's pretty close to dead nuts. I put the bubble level up here on top of the frame, and if I can get a decent angle at it, it's pretty close. Just a hair nose high, but that's okay in my opinion. But it's the same on both sides, so that's a good thing. I took my angle finder and zeroed it out at this mark at the rear body mount. And then put it on the ass end of the bumper. So here, you can tell it's tail high, and the angle finder tells me it's about 2.5 degrees up, which is fine as long as I know what that dimension is. I can replicate that when I go to put it all back together. So that's my goal. I took some photo evidence so I don't have to try and remember everything. I also took angle measurements here on this portion of the frame, and they were within, both sides are within 1/2 degree of being plumb. So that's pretty good. In my opinion, that's about as good as a 25-year-old frame is going to get. I did take some interesting video as I was jacking the frame up and down and moving things around so that I could try and level things up. You could actually watch the frame bend right in that portion where I'm going to cut it. You kind of watch it become a little bit of a spaghetti noodle. It's kind of odd. I did it really slow, so it's not super pronounced. But if you're paying attention to the video, you can definitely see that when this comes up, when the center support comes to rest, and then you can watch the rest of the frame kind of drop down another, probably by the time you get to the back bumper is probably 1.5 inches, maybe even 2 inches. Definitely a little bit of a spaghetti noodle, but either way, knowing the way that it is, and of course that will all be supported back again, and it'll be even more supported now because I'll have some 1/4 inch fish plates on the inside of the frame rails, so that will help span that extra gap. and those fish plates will run the full length of the frame splice. In the vertical axis, I hope that it will be help support it. The frames on these cars aren't very thick. I think they're in the 1/8 inch range, so they're pretty thin. Obviously susceptible to flexing, but I'll help stiffen that all up. Probably put some fish plates on the outside splices as well, but the inside splice will be one big long piece of quarter plate that goes from the original frame all the way back to the original frame and encapsulating the splice. So, and of course I'll put holes through all of that so I can center weld it, and of course I'll perimeter weld it, so should be as stiff as it's going to get. Bottom line, that's the best we can do. But now we know that it wasn't necessarily stiff before, so that's a good thing. So anyway, I've been out here for a couple hours doing my thing. I think it's about time to either go catch a little bit of a nap before I get ready to start work, or maybe just go get cleaned up and start work. I usually start my mornings working in my home office before I head into the shop. So we'll see. We'll see what works out on that side of it. But recap, had everything supported. This jack stand is fully supporting here, right behind the center skid. So that's pretty rigid portion of the frame. And then back here off of the spring perches, that's pretty solid. And then all the way back at the bumper on jack stands and some 2x, of course, to get all of that adjusted to the right height as well as fully supported. It was funny because every time I would move things around a little bit, I would have the center jack stand would be loose, or the center jack stand would have support and the rear jack stands would be loose, or both the rear and the center would be supporting and then the front one would be loose. So it took some finagling to get everything to touch at the same time, a little bit of shimming here and there. But either way, I got it. I feel pretty confident that when I cut this thing that nothing's gonna try and jump off and run away. So that's really what it's all about. And now I'll make some marks on the frame. Maybe that's a tomorrow project. Maybe I'll work on it tonight after work. We'll see. As always, this project I know is going to be long. Kind of like me and my videos, long-winded. So I know it's going to take a minute. It's definitely going to be time-consuming. And my goal is still to have this car all put back together for spring wheeling. And if I keep the pace up that I'm doing, I hope that I can make that goal. I don't really have too many concerns that I'll make it, especially with the winter coming. I can fire up the heater here in the garage and spend all day tinkering. We've been out playing as much as possible lately. Yesterday we did some kayaking up in the Sierra Lakes. It was a beautiful day. Sun was shining, no wind, perfect. Great Labor Day. Sunday, the day before, we spent all day out on Deer Valley Trail, doing some wheeling and having a good time out there, looking at the sights and enjoying again, another beautiful weather day. So, it's a pretty active weekend, nice long weekend. Love all of that. And time to get some work done, or real work, the stuff that makes the bread, you know. So I'm gonna go do that, and we'll talk to you later. Hello again. Well, I think tonight is the night. I've got all the frames marked out, and I think I'm ready to cut it. So I'll show you what I've got, I'll show you what I've done, and where I am. Little quick wrap up of what I've done over the last 10 days or so, and here we go. So here's my TJ. I've lifted the back of the body up off the frame. I've made some marks here. Obviously, that's where I'm going to be cutting. It's approximately 1 inch from the bottom of the body mount. So that should give me plenty of space to run an inner sleeve forward to support the frame and as far back as I can go. So it'll only give me a few inches at the back, but I should be able to fish plate it well enough that it is nice and supported. And of course I'll put holes in the frame so I can do some fillet welds, plug welds if you will, and get that all squared away. I've changed around the way I had it leveled out. I wanted to be able to roll the back half of the frame after I cut it off so I can move it around fairly easily. So I put everything on little rollers and it came back fairly level. It was a little bit of a struggle, as you can expect, but it's trying to level an old frame on a garage floor is never easy in my opinion. I managed to collect some material. A good friend of mine had a section of material. It's the since the TJ frame is a 4x2.5, he had the remnants, which should be enough for me to do my splice. I only need about 30 inches. And there's probably at least 40, if not 48 inches there. So I'm pretty stoked to have that material. And I grabbed some other material that I'll be able to make inner sleeves with, and be able to plug weld those in. So once I get the frame cut and get it cleaned out and beveled down, then I'll be able to start working on prepping the extensions and getting all of that squared away. So one thing he also had that he gave me was this piece of top railing, which would be very beneficial. As you can tell, it's even the same color as my car. Not that the cars can end up being this color when I'm done with it, but it's kind of cool. There should be plenty of material there to be able to do the same 15-inch splice on the top of the bed rail for both sides. So pretty excited about that as well. So I'm going to fire up the grinder and start making some sparks. Wish me luck. Well, it's done. The pig is now 2. Maybe I should just leave it like that. Instead of lengthening the wheelbase, maybe I should shorten it. No, I'm joking. Obviously. I just spent about 20 minutes vacuuming and wire brushing out this section of the frame, of course about as far back as I can get. Pretty full of stuff. I'll show you the other half of the frame so you can see. I live in the desert, luckily for me. If I was back east or somewhere wet, then I can see why. I can see how one of these frames could be absolutely rusted through. Let me grab a light here real quick. So you can see the amount of crud that's in there. Of course I won't be able to get all of it, but I'll do my best. And of course I'll wire brush it all out, but that's a ton of stuff. And this frame rail isn't any better. So it's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive amount of junk in there. Yep, so I'll get my shop vac out and keep drawing away. Cleaning that out, that's I guess that's the next step. Maybe that'll be a good stopping point for today, and who knows, so maybe I'll get up early in the morning and start working on making the center section and the extension and the inserts. Try and see how far I can get to getting this thing back into one piece. Seems to have come apart pretty easy and pretty quick. I trust you saw the video of the time lapse of me cutting the frame rails. Hopefully that wasn't too boring. Didn't seem to take too long via time lapse, but it was a little bit. Not too bad really. 20 minutes maybe. The cuts seemed to turn out pretty good. They're fairly square. You know, not perfect, but definitely not my worst work. So I'm satisfied with that. So maybe I'll do another quick vid in a section after I get done cleaning out the front section of the frame rail and show you what that looks like. Of course, I'm gonna spray some weldable primer up inside of there and do my best to mitigate any rust. Luckily, it doesn't look too bad. Kind of just a light bit of surface rust at this point. Not bad for a 28-year-old car now. Goodness gracious. Yeah. So anyway, we'll talk to you soon. All right. So I've reached the point that I'm ready for bed. So it's fairly early still. It's only like 10 o'clock. But I managed to get my goals done for the night, which was to obviously get this cut. I have the back half sitting on some jack stands on wheelie carts so I can roll it around. So far it's proved pretty helpful. I think that was a good idea. I had to strap the buggies down to the frame or vice versa so that it would roll around fairly easily. Otherwise they were all trying to turn and make a mess. But I got the frame rail cleaned out. It doesn't really look like it right now because that's a bunch of grinding dust in there. I did shoot some weldable primer up inside of there and blew it all out and with some compressed air. So got it pretty clean. Also got that side cleaned up. I had some prototype brackets from way back in the day from outboarding some shocks mounted here that I was able to finally get off after 20 years. So I ground those down, cut those off, and clean the frame up there. On the front end of the frame as well, I got the frame cleaned out pretty well. I scooped in there and with a wire brush, and then as far as I could reach, and then got up front with my high pressure compressed air and blew the rest of the stuff out of there. And so it turned out pretty good. And again, sprayed it down with some weldable primer because I'll be working on that, but seems to be pretty clean in there now. Definitely much better than it was. So I'm pretty excited about that part of it. Like I said earlier, I'm gonna probably turn in for the night. I feel like I got a decent amount of progress done today. We'll see how I feel in the morning. I may put a few hours in out here again. It's probably about time to start getting my frame extensions and insert pieces all cut. Weld those together, clean them all up, get some surface rust off, and prime them down, and do everything that you're supposed to do with all of that. But for now, she's in 2 pieces. Well, I guess you'd consider it 3 pieces with the tub, the back half of the frame, and of course the front half of everything. But moving forward, feeling pretty good. So we'll see you again soon, and we'll see what tomorrow brings.